Why I chose Singapore over Germany, 10 reasons, and what didn't turn out as I expected. That's the topic today. Hi, it's me again, Martina. So the first reason why I chose at that time to stay in Singapore, I moved to Singapore end of 1997. I gave birth to 2 boys, and shortly after that I separated from my husband. And I had to make a decision at that time where I want to live and stay, either go back to Germany or stay in Singapore. What I want to say is I was very sick at the time. For me it was clear I need help, so there is no way around it. And it is difficult to organize help in Germany. Usually a family lives further apart and you have to organize either with strangers or with maybe the kindergarten, the school, a mother for the day or something like this. And I saw my sister, my little sister at that time, she struggled a lot. So therefore I was already a little bit on the fence with Germany. In Singapore you could have a maid, and I know I could afford a maid. So the first point was basically I needed help and I could hire a maid in Singapore. I couldn't do this in Germany. The second point was, which was very important to me, I had small children, both went to kindergarten at that time. The baby didn't even go to kindergarten, I still had to nurse him and everything. Since I had my health problems, I wasn't able to bring my son every day to the kindergarten. There were some good days and there were some bad days. But I wanted my child to go to the kindergarten guarded, either with a mother or a father or grandparents or somebody else. And in Singapore you have this great thing at that time. Every child was picked up by a bus, kindergarten bus. I from myself do not know that in Germany, maybe they have it, but I know a lot of kids went on foot to kindergarten, brought by their parents, and I wouldn't be able to do this every day. So I wanted my son or my sons to be safe. So I decided, okay, that's another point, I will stay in Singapore. A third one is work, obviously. I mean, I had little chance at that time to find work immediately in Germany or in Singapore. So both countries were basically the same chances. Or maybe Germany a little bit more, but to be quite honest, I had the feeling in both countries I will be not that successful. I have very little chances to go back. And another very key moment was for me, I took my resume and I went to the German embassy in Singapore. And at the counter was a woman, a middle-aged woman, she was maybe 45 at that time. And I humbly said, excuse me, I'm living here in Singapore, I'm a single mom and I'm looking for a job. If there is an opening at the embassy or somewhere else, could she look at my resume and da-da-da. So she said right away, and she was like outrageous loud. I mean, there were people waiting for the passports behind me and I was like, geez, really? It was shocking. This was a big event for me because I was fragile at that time and I had to make so many decisions. And if you get something in that moment, it's very clear. It's present and you have to consider it. So it was clear, oh, I'm a single mom and people have prejudgment and they will go for it. So that was one thing. And then I just came back from Germany. I flew actually with both of my kids and my niece from Friedrichshafen to Hamburg on a small plane. We booked business class at that time because I would have more space with my children. So what happened when the plane took off, basically in bad weather, people were very tense on the plane and da-da-da-da. Yeah, but my kid started crying, the little one, and the woman behind me took something and hit it on my head. I mean, you must imagine, I have the kid on my lap, yeah? And she is hitting with something. Only one guy got attention to this, and he would interrupt behind me because at the end of the flight, when we were close to Hamburg, something else happened behind me, but I do not know what happened. When I complained about it, the flight attendant basically told me off. So it was a very key moment also. So clearly, Germany was for me not as friendly to children or child-friendly as Singapore. And this is basically another point. Personally, I'm convinced until today they are much more child-friendly in Singapore than in Germany. In Singapore, you go into a shop and the shop attendant will look after your child. So you have time to look after a dress. I mean, of course, they expect you to buy something. But to be quite clear, they will always look after the kids, at least at that time. Don't know how it is today. I received support for my children, but I didn't receive support for myself. It was clear with that money I cannot live in Germany or in Singapore without working. I had to downgrade also my apartment or condominium. At that time I lived in a condominium. So I found something very nice. Compared to Germany, I wouldn't have that chance. I wouldn't live that great and that nice. So Singapore was definitely the better choice. Next thing is clothes for the children. Germany has 4 seasons, Singapore has 1 season. Very big advantage. Yeah, and then the 7th point is here, language. My eldest son had problems to articulate himself. And what we did at that time, we went to a speech therapist, and the speech therapist told us to learn only 1 language. At that time, I still believed in it, and I followed their advice. I changed later my opinion, but at that point of time, I was convinced I do the right thing. So he learned English first. And in Singapore, you have English education, and they had actually, I mean, he was still in kindergarten, but he could go to a boys' school, whereby in Germany we do not have this anymore. The advantage of the boys' school would be that because girls are further with language and talking, that he wouldn't be bullied by the girls in school. This was a very big thing for me because I know it from my school, and I didn't want him, because he had a slight stammer, to get worse. So I was convinced to bring him to the boys' school. Another thing is how cheap is the takeaway food, which is very important. I mean, yes, we mothers want to cook for our kids and do the best what we can, but the reality is you're a single mom, you have a certain budget, and you have that much time to work, that much time to take care of the kids, and that much time to cook and do the housework and whatsoever. So it will be tight. I plan to have a maid if this will turn out like I wanted it. So at that point of time, I decided, okay, how much is the hooker food? It's around $2 to $3 one meal. You easily can afford it for 3 people, and the kids would eat maybe maximum 1 meal. So I thought that's a good thing. Compared to Germany, 10 times better. Yes, Germany has also cheap options, but compared at that time, it wouldn't work out at all. So I would have to cook every day at home, and there would be then canned food or something else, and I also didn't want that. So for me, this was a good option. So another thing, this is actually very important, maybe I should have put this at the first point. It's meeting the father. The father was an expat. I moved with him to Singapore. He got work, and he moved back to Europe, but to Switzerland. So for me, if I would move back to Germany, I would go to Frankfurt. This is 600 or 700 kilometers apart. And it would be the same if we live in Singapore or in Germany, because he had work to do. So he came at that time almost every month back to Singapore. So he saw his kids regularly. So that wasn't a problem. And looking back, I mean, my kids are now adult. It was a really, I think he has a very good relationship with the kids. Either he visited us once a year or the kids came to him. So at least twice a year they saw each other. It didn't look so great in the beginning, but at the end it turned out very well. And I don't know, maybe I cannot recommend it, but we have a very good relationship, I would say. And the boys have both a good relationship with him, and they usually talk to each other regularly. And another thing was cool. When we moved to our neighborhood, with small kids, you find very fast friends. And I had a lot of friends anyway in Singapore. Not once I depended on them to look after my children, because I had a maid at the end of the day. But my friends looked after my maid and the children. So if I was late or something, my friend would say, please bring the kids over. They would love to play with my children. And then my maid came with her, and we had a great relationship. I still miss my maid. Mary is her name, and it was just a great time. I had to change, but this is up to the character of the girl. I couldn't get along, or there were some smaller issues. But I didn't have the same problem as in Germany, switching day mothers very often as my sister, for example. And this was very important for me. I didn't want to change our residence, and I didn't want to change the people who are around my children, meaning tonight I need a babysitter because I have to work. No, I didn't want to do this. I wanted to have one person there, like grandparents. Looking back, I never want to miss this time. I think this was one of the best decisions I have ever done in my life. I made so many friends, I had so much work experience, and I just loved the time. I really loved the time in Singapore. It was a difficult time, and very difficult for me to find work or to get work and to live with a small budget and whatever came up. It was very difficult. I didn't have a dream house or something, but I had a house and we had a garden and everything. But I don't want to miss this experience. A down thing is, after a couple of years, I started thinking about meeting somebody. I didn't want this guy to meet my children, but just going out and meet a guy or something like this. And what I didn't realize at that time, but this is not only to Singapore, this is in general to maybe to the whole world. As a single mother, the men think a certain way about you. And I still remember this. We met in a bar, this was a date. And the guy said after a while, single moms are very thankful. That's why it's great to date them. He wanted to make me comfortable, that it's totally cool that I have children, because I'm so thankful that he is dating me. And I thought, seriously? I went to the restroom, and that I forgot the name of this, was Boat Key or Clark Key, somewhere there. And this restroom had 2 exits. I went out the other side and went home. And from that day onwards, I would never ever tell anyone that I have kids. It was on my terms to tell a guy, hey, I want more from you, I'm interested in you, but now I tell you what is going on in my life. I would never tell a guy in the beginning I'm a single mother, because it looked so desperate to me, and it wasn't their business. I never knew if I want to see this guy a second time. So, yeah, and you have to say this also, Singaporeans are not into Caucasian women, absolutely not. This is also a big bummer. I have never thought in the context of who I'm dating, a German or a Chinese or a Japanese. It never came to my mind, because both of my sisters are married to Americans, and it was never a topic in our family. However, in Singapore it is a topic again, That's a bit a downer, I have to say. So, yeah. But anyway, it turned out well. I met my future husband in Singapore. All is good. And another down is, after a while I realized a speech therapist was wrong. my kid could speak more than one language. And we started a little bit German, but it was definitely not enough because he went to a local school. And in 2006, I decided to go back to Germany. Then I met my Japanese husband, and yeah, we went to Japan. And shortly after, we went to Dubai, and the kids went in Dubai to the German school. So this is all cool, and they speak fluent German. They're both in Europe, and yeah, that's it for today, and I see you in my next video. Let me know in the comment section what you're thinking about this video. See you then. Bye.